Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Rangers Review. It is your team news reaction video ahead of this afternoon's clash at Parkhead. Rangers making the short journey across the city to take on Celtic at snowy Celtic Park. It's fair to say adverse conditions overhead. To talk about the Rangers team, I'm joined by a full squad. Joshua Barry, how are we doing, Joshua?
Good, Derek. Just looking at the team. Obviously, the news that Goldson and Lundstram is there in there. A bit of a surprise. I kind of thought they both would make it purely because obviously Goldson had trained yesterday, and it wasn't as if it was a long-term injury. He's got a history of coming back quite quickly as well. So I think it's as strong a team as we probably could have expected within the kind of context of the last couple of weeks. And yeah, looking forward to seeing how it goes because it's such a big. These are always big games, but it feels like so much is riding on this game today.
Absolutely. Chris Jack also joins us. How are you feeling today, Chris?
Not too bad, not bad. Another day in my recovery, so I'm feeling I've passed my own Old Firm fitness test. I'm good to go as well. So we've been counting down to this one for a long time. It's been a long time. We've been mentioning this one almost since the manager came in. Actually, this was the game that stood out. It was all about what Rangers did from the day that he came in until this afternoon, come 12:30. We've now finally almost reached 12:30 today, so it's very much take the next 90 minutes and then we'll see where Rangers are.
Yes, absolutely. Before we look forward to the game, folks, we start with some sad news. A lot of comments coming in that Caroline, a regular contributor to the morning briefings, has sadly passed away. Really dreadful news to wake up to. Lots of comments coming in. Steely FM says, such sad news. RIP, Caroline was such a lovely person. Yes, absolutely. And Stephen Gillespie saying, terrible news. Thoughts and prayers go out to Caroline's family and friends. We echo that here at the Rangers Review. Thoughts and prayers to Caroline's family and friends. Like I mentioned, she was a valued contributor to the Rangers Review morning briefing, and she will be sadly missed. So that is sad news to wake up to this morning. No easy way to move on from that. But in terms of the team, I think, Joshua, you can fire it up on said screen and we'll discuss it in more detail. Rangers lining up with Butland in goal, Tavernier, Goldson makes the game, Balogun and Ridvan. A midfield of Lundstram and Sterling. John Lundstram back in the side with Seamat, Cantwell and McCausland supporting Cyril Dessers up top. On the bench for Rangers, McCrory, Suter, Lammers, Cifuentes, Matondo, Dowell, Scott Wright, King and Adam Devine. Joshua, John Lundstram, yep. I think that's a big one. We've discussed on the videos whether he would make it. Philip Clement, as ever, was keeping his cards close to his chest in the press conference yesterday. Good to see that he makes it. Connor Goldson, we know, trained yesterday. Also good to see that he makes it. Ridvan is the one. I think that there was a bit of... everyone was thinking, well, Borna Barisic make the game. He hasn't made the game, so Ridvan starts at left back. Any concerns about that team?
I think it's the biggest game of Ridvan's career, Derek, so far at Rangers, isn't it? I don't think there's much doubt about that. To be honest, he's not really been thrown into games of this magnitude so far. I'd be more confident putting him into a game like this, where I think the game's going to be played more on the ground, as opposed to if it was maybe somewhere like an Aberdeen away, where it's going to be more about the kind of physical duels and the aerial duels. Big game for him, absolutely no doubt. Celtic play with width on both sides, and they'll have a big task to try and negate that threat. Lundstram and Goldson being back is the two obvious boosts. I think that gives Rangers an immediate boost going into this one, Derek. If not, you're looking at Suter and Balogun in there, and maybe a continuation in the midfield we saw against Motherwell. You look at the bench as well, and you've got Suter, Lammers, Cifuentes, Matondo, Dowell, Wright, King and Devine. So suddenly you've got a little bit more strength and depth in the midfield there as well. So no surprises elsewhere. I think it's right that he continues to put his trust in Ross McCausland, who obviously started away in Betis as well. I think there's a lot of optimism for Rangers heading into this game, Derek. As Chris says, Clement's been able to really turn the tide in the last couple of months, but this is the big test. Celtic have that injury worry at the centre of their defence as well. Interesting to see if Rangers can exploit that. But I think from their point of view, to have Goldson back in there is the obvious boost, because he makes that defence so much better. And Lundstram, we know what his form's been like under Clement. I had a sneaky suspicion he'd always make it back for this game, and obviously he's fit enough to start it.
So just give you the rundown of the Celtic team, folks, as well. It's Hart, Alistair Johnston, Welsh, Scales, Taylor, McGregor, O'Reilly, Bernardo, Maida, Palma, and Kyogo. So that is how Celtic will line up this afternoon. Big bonus, I think, Chris, having Connor Goldson at the heart of that defence. Any concerns about Ridvan?
Yes, but there's not very much we can do about it now. So I've said before, I'm not a huge fan. I don't really see what he brings to the party that is so much better than Borna Barisic. To be fair, that's not to say that Barisic is perfect. He has had issues in terms of overarm games, but we know that. I think the team would have been stronger with Barisic in it. But as Josh outlined there, what an opportunity and what an afternoon it is for Ridvan. He's been needing a moment almost to kickstart his Rangers career almost since he got here. He's been in and out the side. He's had injuries. He's never really shown anything to justify the fee and the excitement when he first came in. If he can go and put in a performance at Parkhead this afternoon, then I say what an afternoon it could be for him, and what a platform that could then give him. I know that the manager has also had to switch between the two of them, also due to the Europa League squad. I think Barisic is probably his preferred one, but I don't think there's that much. I don't think there's that much between them. Two very different styles, obviously. Interesting to see how he can adapt, or how he can get himself into the game in an attacking sense. Interesting to see how that partnership with Seaman goes, because the Rangers will look to exploit the Celtic right-hand side if possible. I think we'll see a lot of balls put down and behind Alistair Johnston and get Seaman to try and win that foot race, to try and get Rangers out and try and get them up the park at times if Celtic have a bit of possession, a bit of territory. So it's a really, really big afternoon for Ridvan, but a big afternoon for everyone. It's not the strongest Rangers side that we could have picked out of the squad, but out of the people who are available, I think it's the best the manager could have done with this afternoon.
Before we go back to the team, Joshua, I've been watching some of the videos of the team bus and the team heading into the team bus from Ibrox. That reception from the Rangers fans is absolutely incredible. That can't help but inspire. Not that they need any inspiration and motivation, but just to have that backing. I know they're not inside the stadium this afternoon, but as Philip Clement said yesterday, they'll be in their hearts. That was unreal, that backing this morning.
Yeah, and I think it speaks to a confidence, Derek, and Clement spoke quite repeatedly in the first couple of months, or maybe first couple of weeks, when he came into the job. He kept using that phrase, synergy between the fans and the team, and he spoke about that, I think, specifically after the Sparta Prague game, where Rangers kind of for the good first 60 minutes probably should have killed the game off, and then for the last 30 were kind of hanging on a bit, and he just noted how the fans really stuck with the team throughout the kind of duration of that second half, and commented that he thought that relationship was repairing, which is so important at a club of this size because of the impact that fans can have on the overall mood. No fans there, and you know, having been obviously at the first Old Firm fixture of the season, I think that does play into things if the home side are able to get up when there's no away fans and impact the game, then it's only natural it plays some sort of a part. But what you can, I think Clement's remit going into this game would have been to get Rangers as close to Celtic as they can. And I know obviously the games in hand kind of impact things a bit, Derek, and it gives a bit of a false sense perhaps. Rangers don't have the opportunity to go top today, whereas they might have had they played Ross County, and they're obviously kind of clear favourites for that at home. But he's won the Cup so far, topped the European group, unbeaten, only blip domestically, I think, has been the away game at Aberdeen. So he's done his part so far, and I think because of that, there is a renewed sense of confidence with this group that had lost 3 games in their opening 8 league matches. There's a renewed confidence going into this fixture that I can't really remember, feeling or sensing or observing in the last couple of seasons. Really, I don't think there's been this feeling that Rangers can go and get a positive result. A lot can happen today. Rangers might not get a result, and it might be a bit of a reality check. We'll see. I think the Real Betis game as well away from home will give them a lot of confidence, because they're going into a hostile atmosphere. They have to play their game, be aggressive, and I'm sure Clement will have mentioned that in the build-up, because if you're looking for a recent example of a away game where Rangers have kind of defied the odds, then that night in Spain certainly is up there, as I think he mentioned that in his Rangers TV interview heading into this game, didn't he?
Yeah, it's going to be a bitterly cold and wintry game at Parkhead. It isn't going to be like that in Paphos, where Georges says he's in Alexander's pub in Paphos, buzzing for the game. On the Rangers, just rubbing it in there, George. Let us know in the comments, folks, incidentally, when was the last time there was an Old Firm game where it was snowing? I'm racking my brains. I can't remember when the last game was, but certainly snowing at Parkhead. I've just seen images there of what looks like the ground staff using leaf blowers or something to get the snow off the pitch, but it's game on as things stand. How much will that affect the game, do you think, Chris, the conditions today?
I don't think it'll have too much of a part to play. I think the manager spoke both his broadcast presser and his newspaper interviews yesterday about, obviously, no away fans. He spoke about the atmosphere of Old Firm games and how he was looking forward to going and experiencing that. I think the atmosphere inside the stadium will probably have more of an impact than the underfoot conditions. From the images and the videos that we've seen so far, the pitch still does look in good nick. So I don't think it'll play too big a part. As Josh was saying there, I think the atmosphere point is a big one. If Rangers can start on the front foot, if they can start positively, if they can get the Celtic fans on the backs of their side, it then does change the atmosphere. It changes the dynamic within the stadium, and that can then really play into Rangers' hands. I think it's also important for Rangers to start on the front foot, because that's the best way to beat this Celtic side. Now, Michael Beale got it badly wrong in the first game this season at Ibrox. I think we all know that. The approach that day was bizarre. It didn't work, and it never looked like working. I don't think Clement will make the same mistake. Yes, it's not the strongest side. Yes, it's maybe a bit patched up in terms of players playing out of position, like Sterling. Some guys like Lundstrom and Goldson may be a bit short of fitness and may have been patched up. But I think the approach from Rangers has to be better today. And if they are more on the front foot, if they are more attacking, if they have more control, that will help them in terms of action on the pitch. That then certainly helps them in terms of how the stadium reacts as well.
Yeah, that's an important point that Chris raises there, Josh, isn't it? I mean, the approach of the game at Ibrox, you were there, it was bizarre. I didn't understand it whatsoever. That being said, if the roof goal stands, then it's a completely different game. Who knows if Philippe Clement is still the Rangers manager, but that could have been a blessing in disguise having that ruled out. But Rangers have had two, for me, legitimate goals ruled out in the last 3 Old Firm games. We discussed before, hopefully I'm not talking about referees, but that game at Ibrox, Rangers cannot, I'm sure Philippe Clement will have watched that game. They can't afford to start like that in this one.
Nah, definitely not. I mean, that game felt like a bit of a strange one. Obviously, they did score the goal, but they also, I think, that kind of, for me, Derek, gives a bit of a false sense of the first half, because, pardon me, outside of the actual goal that won the game, that Celtic scored through Kyogo, they had a good few more opportunities that were created by allowing, I think, McGregor the space. And I think it was just a tactical plan gone wrong into memory. And Michael Beale spoke about that after the game, the kind of disconnect between the forwards and the midfield, and the way that they were trying to wait to kind of bait the press and then trigger it at the right time. Rangers' structures is very different, and the especially the structure on the ball has been pretty set and clear since Clement came into the club, and that's helped him. I think, aside from that one game away in Sparta where they didn't have a left back, that's helped him because it's given continuity to the players in the team. They'll be largely pressing in man for man when they want to be aggressive. They'll look for Sima. They won't really play the ball through the pitch at all. Expect a lot of diagonals from Goldson. Expect them to try and find the runs of Sima and Dessers. From the left-hand side, Derek, expect Rangers to also try and, if they want to build out, use the right-hand side. If you think of the goal, the Sima goal against Hearts, where it's McCausland playing by the touchline, Tavernier bursting in field, the right centre midfielder kind of making a bit of a decoy run at Cifuentes on that occasion to open up the midfield for Tavernier. But to the wider point, it's important the Rangers don't go and just sit and give over momentum of the game, because I know they've got a good defensive record, but I don't think that's when they're at their best. I think they need the game to be more end-to-end. They need to get Sima running in space on the right-hand side. A big day for Ross McCausland up against Greg Taylor. We'll see what he can get out of him. And I think you've got to attack Celtic's probably weakest point at the moment. They've had, obviously, a couple of bad results over the last month, which is left, which reopened the title race, really. But they also, I think, in the last couple of weeks have had some good performances and some returns to form at the top end of the pitch. They're strong on the left-hand side, with Palma in particular. O'Reilly is a really good player, being one of the best in the league. This season, Rangers need to try and target, I think, Celtic centre-backs. Carter Vickers not being in there is a similar, for me, leveler, as if Connor Goldson wasn't in there for Rangers. I think he's that important to Celtic, just as Goldson is to Rangers in the middle of the pitch. So interesting to see how Cyril Dessers does. We spoke about him recently. He's not someone who I think is going to physically bully maybe the two centre backs. It's about how can he use his movement intelligently to try and fashion opportunities, and how can you try and get Sima to be that second striker as much as possible, running off the back of the defence. So we've seen quite clear there's been consistency, Derek, in how Rangers have played. I don't think there'll be too many surprises. Whereas at the start of the season, there's a lot of changing of positions, not much consistency. I don't think the starting 11 was the same up until something like the 12th or 13th game. That's not the case now. I think there's a consistency about what Rangers are doing, and you have the likes of a little bit of strength on the bench as well if you need to bring it on. Don't expect too many surprises. Agree, you've got to be aggressive and try and get at that centre-back pairing in whatever way you can.
Yeah, I love this. Colin Ferguson says, I've been pumped for this all week, watching from Melbourne and Oz. Let's make it a new year to remember, Bears. I know how you feel, Colin. A point that came in, Chris, I want to direct it your good self. Chris Hamilton says, anyone worried about Cantwell being sent off? It was a comment that came in, I think. I don't know if I was on with you sometime this week, and there was a concern that he might get overexcited, shall we say, with the occasion. He does like to play on the edge, Todd Cantwell. Is that a concern for you? And how big a day is it for him? He could be the difference maker in this game, couldn't he?
He could be, because we all know the quality that Todd Cantwell has. We all know the ability that he has. We know the type of influence that he can have on big games. There would be no bigger stage and no better time for him to produce a performance than this afternoon. I think we're waiting for Cantwell to really burst into life this season. I think he's been good in spells. He's been below par in others. We've also discussed his position quite a lot 2-3 weeks ago. In terms of getting sent off, and I don't have a massive fear about it. I wouldn't, if I was a betting man, I wouldn't be completely against having a yellow card on him right enough, because I think he's the type of guy who does. If you're into the accumulators in terms of the bookings, he would be one of the names I would pick out, because he does, as you say, Derek, he does play on the edge. He does perhaps get involved in these things at times, but I wouldn't have any real concerns. We actually spoke to him, must have been towards the end of last season, about like big games. I can't remember, maybe ahead of one of the Ed Hampden games, and he was speaking about big games and how he has to contain himself in the build up, but he gets so worked up for it, and he treats these ones differently, because he sees these as like his stage, and this is his time to go and shine and go and perform. The build up for him, I'm sure, as it has been for a lot of the players, it will have felt different this week. It's also been slightly different because of the game on Wednesday night. The last 24, 48 hours or so, certainly this morning, this game has to feel different. There has to be something in you. If you're not pumped up for this one, if this one doesn't get you bouncing out your bed in the morning, then you're at the wrong football club and you're playing for the wrong team. So I'm sure Cantwell, like all of them, will be hyped up. But it's about channeling that in the right way. Now, Rangers need players who are committed. Obviously, we want them to go out and give them their all, but that's not flying into tackles and getting yourself in trouble. That's not doing daft things. That's not making wrong decisions. That's not doing things just to try and get the fans on side. The best way to get the fans on side is to go and put in a performance and get a result, not to go flying into 50-50s and just for a few cheers. So I think if Cantwell plays his game, and he plays his game properly, he could be a potential game changer and match winner for Rangers today.
Yeah, absolutely. A few comments come in. I've got your point on one of those, Joshua. Firstly, Mr. Melter says, let's go Rangers. Good luck from Hamburg. And Blue Cap says, any Ranger review pundits at the game? No, like the fans, we're not at the game, buddy. We're all doing it from our humble abodes. But we'll have all. Not only are we doing the video today, looking ahead to the game which kicks off at 12:30, but we'll also have, I think we're doing Twitter Spaces as well. Joshua and Johnny will be doing the halftime Twitter Spaces. So if that is your social media platform of choice, then tune in at halftime to hear Joshua and Johnny's take on that first half. And at full time, once we hear from the Rangers manager, let's hope he's a very happy Belgian after today's game. We'll be on for the post-match reaction video, which we hope you can join us for that. And incidentally, a big welcome to everyone who's tuning in now on Instagram Live. We recently went live there. Lots of you tuning in, so a big good morning to each and every one of you. Right, Joshua, this is a question that I want to pose to yourself. You mentioned McCausland there. Ali Fidatelli says, how do you think McCausland will do against Taylor? I think Greg Taylor will have his hands full today.
I think one of the things that Clement's introduced into this Rangers team that they've lacked kind of in recent years, Derek, is people who can carry the ball and get you up the pitch through carrying the ball and just be a general threat when you've got space or when you've not got space. And I think McCausland, they had the kind of a difficult game off the ball against Betis, but generally since he came into the club, since he came into the first team, not only is he as a young player, not only has he kind of done well enough to not look out of place, but I think he's improved Rangers, and Rangers have looked better when they've had him on the right hand side. And he's not a left footer, but he quite naturally likes to move inside the pitch. He's not someone who always wants to hit the byline, which I think works well alongside James Tavernier, and that partnership's worked quite well. You've also got Dujon Sterling able to cover them both. I think you'll see James Tavernier attack the box quite a lot, as he spoke about after the cup final in particular. So expect that to be one of the key battles for Rangers. The other way as well, because it depends where Taylor plays. Will he move inside the pitch a little bit alongside Callum McGregor, and how do Rangers try and counteract that? Do they pull McCausland inside as well? And then does that create more of a one-on-one between Palma and Tavernier? So it's going to be intriguing to see how Rangers counter that tactic from Celtic. Totally agree with Chris on Cantwell. I think this is the type of game. He's had big performances so far, and he, I think, is over the course of the last year, it's not as if he's just been in one position in a settled team. He's had to move around quite a lot. He's had injuries, and I think when he has played in his favoured positions, you've seen his quality quite consistently. But it's these type of games where things really matter, like the cup final in the second half, where I thought he'd really grabbed the game, Derek, after a difficult first half. These are the games where you really make your name, as Cantwell said after the cup final in the mix zone, where he was quite subdued. Not because he wasn't happy about winning the trophy, but he was, I think, trying to make the point that this is only one, and there's much more to play for this season, and even more important trophies to play for this season, if you like. When Rangers do try and go through the middle, I think it's going to be important that Cantwell in that free role gets on the ball as much as possible. I'd expect him to probably play more frequently around the right-hand side, because Rangers normally overload there, and maybe at times go over to the left with Ridvan being in that position. I think he's, as we kind of speak about quite often, I think one of the differences between him and Barisic is you want more players around Ridvan. You don't want to isolate his crossing quite as much as you do Barisic. So I think he's got to have a big game inside in there alongside McCausland and Sima, who hasn't scored in a couple of games. He's had those kind of 2 purple patches this season, but just over the course, I think he's such an important player for Rangers, the way that he allows them to play over the press on the left-hand side, the way they can run in behind his defensive work on the other half of the game as well. He's someone who I think provides so many solutions for Clement while he's still trying to work out different areas of his kind of tactical blueprint at Rangers without much time on the training pitch whatsoever. So I think McCausland, Cantwell and Sima, they're arguably your 3 most important players in there, because for all the benefit of having Lundstrom and Goldson in the defence and in the midfield, Rangers need to be aggressive and attack in this game. And Cantwell in particular, this is where he wants to play, in the centre of the team, right at the heart of the team. And he's the kind of key player for Rangers for me today. And it's obviously no better occasion for him to go and show what he's all about.
Yeah, incidentally, Sima, if you weren't aware of the news yesterday, folks, he has been called up to the Senegal squad for the African Cup of Nations. He will depart on the 3rd of January, so is available to play against Kilmarnock on the 2nd. Cyril Dessers hasn't been called up. He was called up to the provisional Nigeria squad, but hasn't been selected. I'm sure it is for the final squad for that competition. So he will be available from here until the end of the season, which is good news. We all know he has his doubters. He has picked up a bit of form low. Chris, you spoke to him yesterday when he was speaking to the press. He is, I mean, I don't think he's the answer long term for Rangers, but he is doing a lot better under Philip Clement. Rangers don't have anyone else at this point in time. Kemar Roofe out for a minimum next couple of weeks. We won't be seeing him until, I guess, the end of the winter break, at least with regards to that. So it's all the onus is on Cyril to lead the line. How did he sound yesterday? Did he sound in sort of buoyant mood, confident mood that he can do the business today?
I think he's always been fairly buoyant and fairly confident since he got here. Even when he's been going through, as he admitted in that presser yesterday, he's been through some more difficult stages this season.
Yeah.
I think his confidence within himself and perhaps within the dressing room and within the team has taken a hit at times this season. But he's always been a cheeky big chap. Every time we've spoken to him, he's always been really good to deal with. He seems to be a guy who gets it. I think he understands the club. I think he loves the support that he gets from the fans, or when they're giving him support, not when they're booing him off at half time in certain games. But I think he understands that it's not been a great first half of the season for him, but he has come into a bit of form, as you say, the last couple of weeks. His scoring record is good under Clement, and even if Kemar Roofe hadn't picked up that injury a couple of weeks ago, I think Dessers would have started today because he couldn't trust Roofe to get through the minutes. The only way that Dessers wouldn't have been playing today is if Danilo had been fit, and also that's not been the case for even longer. So I think he's probably had this game in his mind for a wee while now, I'm sure. I asked him yesterday, what an overall mean to him. He said I didn't come through. It's a thing that he would love to do as a striker. He'd dream of scoring big goals in big games. There would be no finer way for him to start endearing himself to Rangers fans that have still to be won over, and I know there's a large percentage of them. If he could put in a performance today, and if he could grab the winner, that can then make or break your reputation. Guys that score Old Firm winners at Parkhead, your years and years and decades on it, and we're still seeing videos and pictures and stuff of them. So he will be remembered if he can get the winner today, and it proves to be a successful season for Rangers. He's then got his own place in Old Firm history, so it's a big game for him. I don't think he's the ideal man there, but he's the only man there. He's the guy we have to rely on. So fingers crossed he can go and do the business today.
Yeah, I don't know if JB McKean is super optimistic or he's on the mulled wine early, but he says Dessers hat-trick today. I'd love you to be right, buddy. A question coming in from Rangers Review contributor. I've just had a check on the Instagram Live, Josh. I'll direct this at yourself from Martin Ramsey. He says, do we expect better in-game management today compared to Old Firm games of the last few years? Best laid plans and all that.
Well, always great to hear from Martin first and foremost,
always.
Derek. I think Clement has carried himself as an experienced manager so far, and not just during his in-game management and his decisions, Derek, but I think overall the way that he was even previewing this game, Chris was obviously at the press conference yesterday, but watching it, he didn't sense nerves. He sensed someone that I think was just generally, as he said, curious about the occasion, and I'm sure he will be exuding that into the team as well. Jack Butland spoke, I think it was to Sky yesterday, and he was kind of explaining the Clement's management as well. Noises that we've heard repeatedly from players, whether it be in the mix zone, whether it be in other interviews, or just in general about, I think, how impressed they've been with Clement overall. He's someone who, as we've covered in multiple pieces on the website, having spoken to people who've worked with him in the past, is an absolute workaholic, dedicates his whole life to his work, and is very intentional in the way he manages players. That the example I always use for that is how he's, in the past, all of his clubs hired psychologists to try and understand players better, to try and tailor his man management. So it's clear that alongside the tactical side of things, which is where we always associate detail, I think, in football, also off the pitch, the way that Clement manages his players is the exact same. And you saw that in the Fabio Silva behind the scenes video, where he was saying Clement was saying to Fabio Silva, this is where we have all our one-on-one talks between the player and the staff as well. That's something that he's also done at winter training camps, or just training camps in general in the past. Puts a lot of emphasis on how he manages players. So to Martin's comment, I think that the detail that he'll have gone into for this game and every game will be to the extreme end, and he has experience, maybe not of an Old Firm fixture, which is obviously quite unique, but he has experience of big matches, and I think you saw that in the way that Rangers managed the game away in Real Betis as well, Derek. As Clement said in that Rangers TV interview, that was a team that hadn't been beaten at home in a long time, had just taken a point off Real Madrid at home as well. I know we covered that game at the time and the magnitude of the result, but it was so big, and one result like that fosters confidence that another one can arrive. So we'll see come the end of the game how well the game has been managed. As mentioned, the bench is a little bit stronger in there. We'll see whether Lundstram can play a full 90 minutes, or Goldson, for example, as well. What's the plan if Dessers can only do 60 minutes? Because we've not really seen him do 90 minutes at top level for quite a while, Derek, in all honesty. But I think to Martin's point, you've seen Clement's experience so far. This is the biggest test of it probably to date, and intrigued to see how he approaches it.
Yeah, I think it's going to be important the bench today as well, how both managers utilise their bench. Just a reminder of who's on that Rangers substitutes bench, folks. McCrory, Suter, Lammers, Cifuentes, Matondo, Dowell, Scott Wright, King and Devine. There's an interesting question that came in, just going back to the defence there, Chris. Jordan with the point here. I'll just block out your face momentarily. Says, interest to see how Balogun copes with the speed of the likes of Kyogo and Maeda. Wonder if they'll target him. Any concerns about the pace at the back with those two Celtic forwards?
Well, there are obviously two players that have caused Rangers problems in the past. Now, I don't think Kyogo's having a vintage season by his standards, but monumentally daft to go and write him off and say that he's not going to be a huge threat this afternoon. If Rangers can keep him and Maeda quiet, they stand a far better chance of winning the game. I think the defensive record overall Rangers this season has been good, but that's not to say there's no areas of improvement in there. I think the fact that it's Goldson and Balogun definitely gives Rangers a better chance. If it had been a different partnership, it's then one that's perhaps got more questions about it. That duo has been the one the manager has favoured as one that's been overall. Think back to the Pataudry game is probably its worst afternoon so far, but overall it has been very solid. I say the record is good, but I think the manager actually spoke about this pre-match a fortnight ago. There's been that many pressers this week. I forgot what game it's ahead of, but he spoke about the defensive structures. It's not just the back four. It's not just having a very, very good goalkeeper in Jack Butland. A lot of it's to do with the structure in front of them as well. He mentioned when he came in back in October about the structure of the side. Josh also done a lot of work going through how he likes to set the side up. And I think we've seen it's not just going to be a back four effort. There's a real focus on the team having a proper structure, having a proper shape about it to help out the back four. So I think there's going to be a lot of work in terms of Lundstrom's performance. Sterling, I think, has been excellent in the game that he's come in and been asked to do a job. He's going to have a lot of work to do, and obviously we know that two fullbacks to have certainly better going forward, but he's going to have a big job on his hands defensively as well. So I don't think it's just a case of you can pinpoint Balogun and say, well, Kyogo and Maeda will perhaps go for him. If they do, fine. I'm sure Balogun, he's old enough and wise enough and experienced enough. He's also not exactly a slouch. He may be in his mid-30s, but he's still got a decent turn of pace. So I wouldn't have too many concerns in that regard. I think that the biggest thing is how Rangers set up as a team in that defensive structure, and how that then transitions into having a bit more of a control in terms of the midfield, and then also into the final third that we've seen in previous Old Firm games. Because Celtic, as much as they've perhaps not been at their best over the last couple of weeks, I think if you look at that midfield compared to the Rangers midfield of a stand-in fullback playing midfield, and John Lundstram, who's clearly been a big injury doubt, if you've got McGregor and O'Reilly in there, there's two very, very good operators, two quality midfielders, certainly at this level, and potentially a higher level as well. So I think the midfield battle could well be key. And if Rangers can have a foothold in the game, if Rangers can have a real presence in that midfield, that should then spread into the rest of the side, and hopefully give Rangers the foundation to go on and get a good result.
Yeah,
Derek, I think that if you look at the recent Old Firm games, I know it's Celtic a different manager now, but they're probably strongest down that left hand side with Palma. If Taylor can, I think he's a good passer of the ball. Maybe if he has some, defensive weaknesses which other teams have exploited this season. But having Sterling in there, he'll play on the right side of the midfield compared to Lundstrom on the left of centre midfield. Might not be a bad thing for Rangers, especially because that's where O'Reilly has a lot of his activity, a lot of those underlapping runs. As mentioned, Palma's kind of Celtic's inform attacker across the front three. So I think that side, Rangers' right side of defence, Celtic's left side of attack is going to be absolutely key on that side of the pitch. And having Sterling there, as we saw in that second half against Betis when Isco was really running the game and Sterling came on and managed to, kind of negate his threat for a large part of that second half. I think that'll be really important for him, especially those runs kind of behind James Tavernier, because as we've seen with Ross McCausland, I think he works hard defensively. I don't think that's the strongest part of his game. So I think Sterling in that position, maybe opposed to someone like Cifuentes, who it would have been otherwise, is probably a bit of a plus point for Rangers on the other side of the game.
Yeah, a comment that's come in here from Nick. If anyone can help Nick out, please do so in the comments. Does anyone know a bar in Faro where I could watch the game? Surely there's a bar somewhere where you can watch Rangers play. It has to be quick though. Our kickoff is fast approaching. So if you can help Nick out, then please let us know in the comments. Chris, how big a win would it be if Philippe Clement was to emerge with all 3 points today? I think we were all in agreement would settle for a draw and move on to the game against Kilmarnock. But what would a victory do for this team?
It's interesting how the dynamic has changed over the last few weeks, because I mentioned right at the start, this is the game we've been speaking about since the manager came in. And I think when he was appointed, everyone assumed the Old Firm game would have to be a must-win for Rangers. It was accepted that they couldn't afford to be any further behind than they were, and they probably have to go to Parkhead and win the game to reduce the gap and then give them a shot. The way the last couple of weeks has unfolded, it's really changed in Rangers' favour. Also, Celtic with a couple of defeats, dropped a couple of points. Rangers have put together, Aberdeen aside, a really impressive run of domestic form. And even if this afternoon goes badly, Rangers are very much in this title race now. Even if Celtic go and win today, with the games in hand Rangers have got, you fancy them to go and pick up maximum points in those two, although you can never take it for granted. Rangers have put themselves in a position where, with the right moves in January, with the right time on the training ground during the break, they can be considered as serious title challengers. So yes, it would be great to go and win today. As you say, I think we'll probably take a point. If it's a defeat, it's not a disaster. But on a positive side, if they can go and win, what a huge statement of intent it is. Now, it's also been it's been a long time now since Rangers have managed to win at Parkhead. There's been a couple of sore ones in there over the last wee while as well. It would be a real statement win for Rangers, even bigger, I think, than Betis. That night over in Seville was an incredible result, incredible performance. But there's such focus and there's such pressure on the domestic scene this season. The Premiership title just has to be won, and it would be a real show of intent from Rangers if they could go to Parkhead and get a good result today.
Yeah, am I right in thinking it was the Connor Goldson double? Was that the last time Rangers won there, the 55 season? So, we're well overdue a win. Incidentally, a huge thank you to Duncan Smith, who has gifted 5 Rangers Review memberships on the YouTube channel. That is a fantastic generosity, buddy. Thank you very much for doing so. Just to give you a heads up, the YouTube membership, you get 3 extra videos per week. There's a couple of videos yesterday, incidentally. Me and Chris reacted to the press conference from Philippe Clement and Sergio Dessers, and I also spoke to Yannick Elling, the PSV commentator, who gave us a bit of an insight into Fabio Silva's time at PSV, as well as talking about Niels Koppen and a player that's been linked with a move to Rangers, a left back, the Norwegian Fredrik Oppergaard. So good insight from him. So do go and check it out. But thank you, Duncan. That is very kind of you, buddy. Right, I think we'll wrap up there, gentlemen. Of course, as I mentioned, plenty to come your way on the Rangers Review channel. Joshua will be joined by Johnny at halftime. If you want to use the Twitter Spaces function, they'll give you their views on the first 45 at Parkhead. Full time, once we hear from the Rangers manager, we'll all be back on to give our thoughts on the game. And let's hope we're talking about another Rangers victory and we move on from there. But I hope your team wins, folks, and we'll speak to you a little later on. Bye for now.